you want to know how I made this neat little bench, stick around. I'll show you how. Alright, so today's project I thought we'd build a little bench. And the first thing we need to do anything, any project, yes, of course, the first thing we need is a plan. And so I just kind of sketched up something, and it doesn't have to be, you don't have to be an artist to sketch up something when you have a plan. You just got to have a basic understanding of how you're going to put something together. So, I have these, laminated, huge laminated pieces of material. They're actually headers. They hold up the second floor of a house. They're 16 inches thick, or this way. They're about 30 inches long, and they're almost 2 inches thick this way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rip one down for the top for the seat, cut the other ones in half, and make them the supports, and the piece that goes across the middle, as you see in the drawing, that'll just be some scrap wood that I have, maybe a couple pieces of maple glued together. So the first step is we're going to put that together, and so that can dry while we work on the other project, or work on the other part of the project, and we'll go from there. Okay, the first piece we're going to make, as I said, is going to be this piece here. It's the piece that goes together. It's going to kind of hold the legs from splitting apart. What I'm going to build it out of is I have some 3/4 inch maple that's got a finished edge on it. I'm going to plane this down, and I'm going to glue them together so that I got a little bit more beef to it. It's going to be, almost, after I plane it and clean it up, it's only going to be about 1.5 inches thick. A little less than 1.5 inches. But I want to make that piece. It's going to look something like that. So the first step is to get on the planer and plane this down so I can glue that material together and move on to building the actual seat and legs while that dries. Okay, so after the planing, you got your two pieces of wood that you're going to glue together. We're just going to glue them together, the two sides that were planed. You want to spread the glue out evenly on both pieces of wood. You can use one of these cheap brushes if you don't want to get your hands dirty, but I find these cheap brushes, the hairs come off a lot and you end up picking out the hairs. If you don't have lots of clamps, another way you can put these two boards together is you can place screws in places where you know your shape, what you're going to cut out. So that kind of, if you don't have a lot of wood clamps and you have a big job that needs to be clamped together, just use wood screws and screw the thing together because you know you're going to cut out that particular shape. So we'll just glue it up. We'll spread some glue on, and we'll glue the thing up. Okay, while that's over there drying, we're going to go back to the bench and the two legs. I kind of look over both of these pieces of material, and I notice that one of them has like a saw blade mark in it. Somebody probably obviously cut something on top of it. So the bench, the actual bench seat is going to be narrower that you sit on than the legs that come out in kind of a trapezoid type shape. So I'll use this piece for the legs, and this piece for the legs, and I'll use this piece for the actual seat. So the first step is I'm going to rip this down on the table saw, and just rip it to width. Just, I'm not even going to measure. I'm just going to go where that saw blade mark is, and just clean it up, square it up, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so now that we have our bench, the actual seat is all squared up, and that's the size it's going to be. Now we can focus on the legs. I took the scrap piece that I cut off of the bench, and I'm just going to use that kind of just as a template. You know, I've chosen a 15-degree angle, and you might say, well, Bill, how did you come up with a 15-degree angle? Well, what I did is I just looked at my chop saw, and you know, it seemed like a good angle, and 15 degrees is one of the notches, so I don't have to try to match it as I go back and forth. It actually just clicks in, and that's 15-degree angles. Also, I already know the length, how long these are going to be, because it's going to be half the distance of the piece that I have. So, you know, it's about 14.5 inches long, which will make it about a 16-inch tall seat, which is about what all seats are. And then I just put a framing square. How will I line up where my dado is going to go to receive this leg, and this is just the scrap piece. All I'm doing is I just put the framing square. I don't want the leg to extend out farther. You know, if it's around, again, it doesn't have to be perfect. If it's around the edge of the bench, then that's about that. Here you can see. That's about right where I want it. And so what I'll do is I'll mark the board. I'll set up the table saw for a 15-degree angle, and I'll just dado or plow out maybe about a 1/4 inch of material just to receive the leg, just to give it more gluing, and it won't spread. And you know, you get some people that sit on the thing, you know, then you know, it'll be pretty stable. So that's the next step. Doing is moving the fence, the thickness of the blade, keep getting farther and farther away until I hit the other line. If you wanted to, you could change out to a dado blade, and you know, you could take bigger chunks of material out, but I'll just take my time and work my way over and make all the cuts. Okay, after the table saw and you've gone through and moved the fence a little bit, and you've tried to remove all the material, inevitably you're going to end up with a, you know, where you've moved the fence a little further than the actual thickness, and that's okay, because we can just clean this up with a sharp chisel. The other thing is you might want to test with your scrap piece how that's going to slide right in there, and you can see it's a nice snug fit. Okay, now we can cut the actual legs. I left the saw blade at 15 degrees. I've just raised it. We're going to take this big long piece. I've marked the center line, or where it's, you know, about half. We're going to cut the ends off anyways with the same angle, so approximately half. Doesn't have to be dead on. And now we'll just cut that on the table saw, and then we'll work on both pieces, both individual legs. you can kind of get a feel for what the bench is starting to look like. It's just roughly balancing itself together. The next step, because we had ripped down the top, the side pieces, or the actual legs, they're still as wide as the original, the original piece that was the top. So what we want to do is I want to make this kind of an angle, right? I want it to be wider at the bottom, just skinnier at the top. So I'm just going to use this framing square and draw a pencil line from here all the way up to there, and I'll make those cuts also on the table saw. Okay, there's a couple of different ways that you can cut this angle here. One way is on the table saw. You can see I don't have a guard on my table saw, and the blade is kind of just exposed. This is an angled cut. You can't really set up a fence to make this cut. So this is a freehand cut on the table saw. I do not recommend this if you haven't done this a lot. I've been in the trades for all my adult life, so but it can still be a dangerous cut. Another way to cut this is to use a skill saw. Just use a hand saw and actually just cut that right off. It's a lot safer. So I'll show you both ways. Again, this is probably not the best way, but I've been a carpenter all my life. Don't feel like I'm not that bad things can't happen to me just because I've been a carpenter. But if you understand the saw, that the material has to stay flat to the bench, if you understand what it feels like when it starts to bind and that it could kick back, you probably would be okay making this cut. One tip, I like to just barely make the blade cut through the surface of the material. But again, unless you're an experienced carpenter, I wouldn't try that, and I'll show you how to do that with a skill saw. It's probably a lot safer.